Making requests. So far, we have learned about what empathy is and what empathy is not, and in building empathy, how to break down each other's judgments into observations, feelings, and needs. Now, building empathy is really great for building relationships, but it's only the first step. Sometimes in school, I encounter situations in which people come together with the intention to build relationships and they have a dialogue sharing each other's opinions and feelings, but they end up being frustrated when the dialogue doesn't end up with solutions for how to move forward. So in building relationships, there's another step involved besides building empathy, which is making requests. Now, making requests does not only build understandings between two or more parties, but it also moves the dialogue forward step by step to come to solutions that meet multiple, if not all, needs that are present. In this lesson, let's explore together what requests are and how to make them. So, what are requests? Requests can be made to let others know where you would like to go in a conversation, how you would like others to help, or what you would like to hear back from them. Requests contain 3 different characteristics. First, requests are positive. It's about asking what you do want instead of what you don't want. So rather than saying, I don't want you to exclude me from this conversation, you ask by saying, I wish you can include me in a conversation, which is stated in a positive way of what you do want. And the second characteristic of a request is that it's specific and concrete. So rather than saying something like, I want you to be more responsible, which is vague and abstract, you can instead say, I wish you can be more on time from now on when we have our meetings, which is specific and concrete. And the third characteristic of a request is that it's flexible. Now, this is a very important characteristic of a request, and this is what distinguishes a request from a demand. Requests are our best guess at what will meet needs in the moment, but they are just a beginning rather than an end. So they carry an openness to other points of view and suggestions or information. Now, to elaborate on this point a little bit further, I'm going to be explaining what the difference is between a request and a demand. Imagine that you have made a request to someone, but unfortunately that person responded to you with a no. Now, there are different ways to react or respond to this no, but you reacted to this person's no with anger, stamping your feet and blaming and punishing and guilting and shaming them. Now, this means that you are reacting by not accepting any other answer than a yes from this person. And this makes your request actually a demand. Now, instead of this, you responded to this no by saying something like, okay, let's explore what other options there are, or can I understand your reason for a no a little bit more? This means that you have received the other person's no with an openness and curiosity for what else is out there, and this makes your request actually a request. So, a request is not about how politely you ask the other person, but it's about how you meet someone when they say no. So, to ensure that we never use demands, guilt, shame, blame, or punishment to get what we want, before you make a request to someone, it's important to honestly ask yourself these 2 questions. First, what would you like the other person to do? And second, what do you want their reasons to be for doing that? So, a little bit more on the first question. When we make a request, everyone has a preference for what they wish the other person to do, and this helps to move us in a direction towards potential solutions. But there are multiple strategies to meet any particular need, so it's important to be open to other ways of meeting the same need. And on the second question, this question helps us to connect with our good intention and our sincere desire to create a mutually supportive collaboration. A mutually supportive collaboration means that we are not using our power to make others do something because they feel threatened, guilt, or hopelessness. Like, I have no other choice but to say yes to this person's request. So, one thing to remember is that you can actually get your way by guilting or threatening someone, but it comes at a cost of trust, good relationships, and goodwill from the other person, and inherent motivation from the other person. So, to ask for a request in the spirit of a request instead of a demand, it's good to use this format like, would you be willing to do this? Or would it work for you to do this? Now, before you make a practical request, it's vital that both parties are on the same page. Now, what I mean by that is that you both have a thorough and clear understanding of the observations, what actually happened. And based on this observation, you understand clearly what the feelings are that each party has. And lastly, what the needs are that are either met or not met in each other. To ensure that an understanding of the observations, feelings, and needs are indeed shared, you can ask questions like, I'm not quite sure if I was totally clear. Can you tell me what you understand from what I said? Or, what do you think my feelings and needs are in this situation? Or, what do you think or feel about what I shared so far? Establishing mutual understanding is in essence about building connections with each other. With this connection, you have a foundation to look into different strategies to meet the various needs. When you're making a request, know that your suggested request is not the only way to meet a need, and be open and be in the spirit of ideating as many solutions as possible when your request is met with a no. Remember your intention, which is to create a mutually supportive collaboration. So put your need and others' needs side by side, not only trying to have your way. This will build trust and increase likelihood of collaboration. Trying to meet multiple needs encourages everyone to exercise creativity to come up with solutions, so have fun with this process. The next section of the clip will focus on specific practical tips about how to make a request. So if you wish to take a break at this point, feel free to do so. Pause the video and get yourself a nice cup of tea or coffee and take some time to stretch. Now, when you make a request, how do you increase the chance of your agreement working out and creating a mutually supportive collaboration? So let's imagine that we have a case of having dirty dishes in the sink in your house, and there are two people who are involved. One is someone who has cooked and has left the dirty dishes, and the other person is a housemate who's responsible for cleaning the kitchen. This housemate sees the dirty dishes and wants to make a request to the one that has left a mess. Now, before they make a request, it's important that both parties are on the same page because, as we know, both of them have feelings and both have needs. So for the person who has left the dirty dishes, they may share that they were feeling tired when they left the dirty dishes and they were seeking some ease. And the one responsible for cleaning can share the frustration that they're experiencing, and they are looking for ease as well because it's tiring to clean up for other people. And they can discover that they both have feelings and they have the exact same needs that they share with each other. Now, establishing this mutual understanding is key. Now, as the one responsible for cleaning moves on to making a request and crafting agreements with each other, it's important to utilize the following tips. First, it's vital to ensure that the proposed solution that they have for each other is as concrete and as doable as possible. So rather than keeping it very vague, like my previous example, saying to the other person, I want you to be more responsible, it's important to have an actionable item that includes the information on what needs to be done, when it's to be done, how it's to be done, and who is to do it. Make sure that it's an action that can be caught on film, and it has to be based on a behavior that is concrete. And the next tip is to discuss potential obstacle to success. So, what are some things that might prevent this plan that you have both worked out from succeeding? So, it's important to acknowledge that and come up with possible solutions for how they can overcome those obstacles. And it's also important to create a plan to evaluate how it's working. Perhaps it can be a weekly check in or bi weekly check in of how the conditions are in the kitchen and how their needs are being met based on the different solutions that they have come up with. By coming up with this plan, it gives each other space, but also permission to ask each other how things are going. And if something is not going well, a permission to say, okay, let's improve this, or let's do something differently rather than getting bitter at each other. So some more tips. It's important that when you're establishing agreements for the solutions that there is a buy-in from both sides. If there isn't, then that makes a request a demand. So make sure to check in with each other that both parties are okay with how to move forward. And the next tip is to follow up an agreement with an email, and is something that works well for a more formal setting. I use this a lot in my work situation, especially when the other person is not as detail oriented. It's good to write down the summary of the agreements that you have come up with in a bullet form and share that with the other person via email to check if you're on the same page regarding the agreements. This email gives room to check for any misunderstandings in the agreement. It also gives a written account for the agreement so that there is a way to revisit it at a later time, especially when things are not progressing as well as you have hoped. This is not to be used as an evidence to blame the other person, but to remind each other and find ways to work together towards the agreement that are made. Now, even with our deepest desire for a request to be accepted, there are times that we will hear a no from the other person when we make a request, and there are times when you have to say no to a request that has been made to you. So let's explore together how we can work with a no. So why is it so hard to hear a no? It's often because you feel frustrated over a lack of control over a situation. It's also because you feel disappointed for not getting your way. It's also being fixated on a specific outcome and believing that there's only one way to move things forward. Sometimes we take a no very personally and think that a no means that I don't matter to this person. So for all of these reasons, it's hard for any of us to hear a no. Now, when you're in a position to say no, because you know that these are some of the experiences that the person hearing your no might have, it's important to say no in a way without wrecking the relationship. So how can we do that? We can actually share our understanding of and interest in meeting the other person's needs. So perhaps there's a situation in which your roommate's asking you to have the lights turned off by 10 p.m. because your roommate needs to rest. So you could share your understanding by saying that I do care that you have the rest and the sleep that you need. That's actually acknowledging that the other person has needs. Now, rather than simply saying no, it's important to let them know why not. So you can say, the reason why I'm saying no is because I have 5 assignments due in the next 2 weeks and it takes me a long time to complete each of them. This is the only place that I can focus. So explaining why is very important to make yourself understood by the other party. And lastly, if possible, it's good to offer other solutions or at least express willingness to explore different options. So you can say, is it possible that in the next week that I can stay up beyond 10 p.m. with the lights on and complete the homework? But I'm willing to lend you my noise cancelling headphones and my eye mask so that they might help you to sleep better. So it's good to offer other solutions other than the one that is requested to try to meet both of the needs. It shows that you care and it gets the other person less defensive. So, whenever you hear a no, a helpful mindset to have is that no is just information. Remember that a request is simply the beginning. So, when you hear no, it's not a dead end, but it's an opportunity to explore other options. When exploring other options, it helps to remember that a no means that there is something else more important to that person that is preventing them from saying yes. So when you hear no, it's good to inquire what else is important to them and to explore together ways to meet both needs. Now, another set of tips that I want to share with you is when you are making a request with your teacher or your parent, someone who seems to have more power than you. It's very important when you're making a request with these people to set up the right time and place for the conversation. For example, somewhere that is less public. So, for example, if you're requesting your teacher to decrease the amount of homework, it probably will not work for you to call out in the middle of the class and say, "Hey, can you please give us less homework?" It's highly unlikely for the teacher to say yes, or even if the teacher says yes, it will not be in a positive spirit because you're putting them on the spot and it's like you're bullying them to say yes. So, request for a time and place to make a request one-on-one. So with this right setup, here are some more tips. It's important to lead a conversation with some sort of genuine appreciation. Perhaps you can say, "I appreciate the effort that you're putting in to help us learn this unit on ecology." And then follow that up with some observation that you have, like, "I've noticed that in the last month or so, I'm spending over 1 hour each day on homework for this subject." And then it's good to try to empathize with your teacher or your parent, guessing at their feelings and needs. So in this scenario, you might say, "I also know that our class didn't perform very well on the last test, and I'm wondering if you're feeling frustrated because you really value that we understand the material that we covered in class and that we take responsibility for our learning." So you can empathize with your teacher by guessing at their feelings and needs. And then share your own feelings and needs after you have heard theirs. So perhaps you can say something like, "I've been feeling overwhelmed recently because I have a need to balance expectations from different subjects and my after school activities." And the last step after understanding each other is to make a request. So I'm wondering if it is possible to reduce the homework to 30 minutes each day rather than 1 hour. And I'll make sure to see you if I don't understand something so that you know that I'm taking responsibility for my learning, to show the other person that you're working towards meeting the other person's needs as well. So this is a really good format to apply when you're making a request to someone who has more power than you. So in summary, a dialogue that includes a request is important to build understandings and to come to solutions in a mutually supportive and collaborative manner to meet the needs of everyone involved. Now, this all sounds great, but it's so challenging to do because many of us have tendencies to exercise our power over others and make demands to get our way. Some of us are more passive and are afraid to even make the smallest request because perhaps we fear hearing a no or we feel that our needs don't matter. The important thing to remember, despite the existent power differential, is that everyone's needs matter, including yourself. Now, I introduced a few different tips to increase the possibility of crafting a mutual agreement in this lesson, but the most important thing is your mindset, your willingness to put everyone's needs side by side, and the willingness to creatively explore ways to fulfill these needs. Your practice this week is about recognizing how you and your community members make requests on a day-to-day basis. Now, best wishes to you all.